So much. And I'm just going to now kind of ask a question for you, Caleb. And you've done, I think, 8 campaigns over about 6 or 7 years.
9. 9
campaigns. So I missed one there somehow. Okay, so 9 campaigns. You guys average about 300 to 500,000 on average for each one of those, roughly. So how does your team decide on which product ideas to pursue and then to crowdfund those? What's some of your process? How do you guys think about it as a team?
It typically involves a long and painful conversation where lots of mud is thrown at other people. Not totally true. So this process has actually evolved. When we talk about product, we talk about products that we can launch on Kickstarter. And to Thomas's point, when we think about products we want to bring to life on Kickstarter, there has to be like a unique factor to it. And we even get on the platform and see if other products in that category have been launched, and if they have, how have they done, and how potentially do our new product differentiate. And then if a product doesn't meet that requirement, then we'll just launch it directly like on our website or Amazon.
Cool, great, thank you. I have a gazillion questions here, so I'm not going to monopolize all your time with my questions, but I do have one. There's a lot of talk on crowdfunding or strategy for crowdfunding that you really need to have, a lot of pre-launch hype. You need to hype up what you're doing. You need to have a really kind of a backing, a following before you even start. So for getting a pre-launch hype, what tactics are getting the most leverage today, as in very recent, right? What's working today versus 4 years ago might have been different 4 years ago versus today. So what's working for you guys today on getting the hype, kind of the hype machine going and getting the following?
I'll jump in here, and they'll be able to speak if you have an existing brand. It's, you start with kind of a leg up because you have those zealots that you could tap into. If you were to go back 2 or 3 years, it would have been a lot easier to line up price that would write for you the day you launch. That's harder to do, and very hard to do. And so really, there's kind of 2 main things that we do at Funded.Today. One is what we call the triple F, the friends, family, and fools. So you want to go, and before you launch, talk to your friends, talk to your family members, talk to anyone who might listen to you, might be a fool to commit to put in money to help you. And get a list of 50 people, 100 people, 200 people who say, on the day you launch, I'll put in X amount, I'll put in $50 to buy this product. If you do that, then the day you launch, you'll have momentum. And if people say, because if you go and talk to anybody, they'll be like, oh, that's a cool idea, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. But they might be thinking, man, that's stupid. So unless you get them to commit, you really don't know what they actually think. So by doing that, if they actually don't want to make a commitment, they'll tell you, I don't know if I'll use it, or I don't think I would use it because of this. And you can actually get some useful feedback. So there's that, and then also doing email lead generation. So before a campaign launches, you run ads to a landing page to get people's email. But again, that can be hit or miss. Sometimes the return is 1-to-1. Sometimes it could be 1 to 10. But 1 to 10 is more of the outlier. Typically, it's like 1 to 2. But if you don't do anything and you just launch, you're probably going to see very few pledges.
Do you guys have something to add to that as well? That's in question as far as what was working for you guys with Purple, for example.
In our most recent Pet Ed Kickstarter, we definitely saw great returns on doing lead generation for emails for the campaigns. That's been really impactful.
Yeah, and we have like a big list of people that have backed Kickstarter campaigns, so we don't typically do much for 2 reasons. One, we're typically like behind the 8 ball with getting product based on the time we want to launch. So historically, we haven't had a ton of time to do any pre-launch marketing, but when we go live, we hit our email list really hard. We spin up ads, various things to get the momentum going. But our email lists typically hit whatever they need to hit to get the momentum started on the front end. So, and I agree with Thomas, press is becoming increasingly difficult to get to write about crowdfunding campaigns because so many crowdfunding campaigns have raised tons of money and failed. And so there's like a negative perception, or journalists don't want to be tied to the liability of writing about something that could be really cool, but they don't actually execute. So even for a brand like ours that has successfully launched, funded, delivered multiple campaigns, it's still really hard for us to get press to write about our campaigns now. And that's just what's happening in the marketplace overall.
Interesting. So kind of switching gears a little bit towards fulfillment. So I think that's part of the issue that you guys are alluding to, is that people will fund these high numbers, but then on the back end, they don't fulfill what they promised, or they haven't been able to, well, essentially ship on time, not just on time, but really get product to the backers. And so, that's one thing I wanted to address a little bit. So, how, for shipping costs particularly, how do you guys go about figuring your shipping costs? What are the kind of pitfalls that you've seen? So as far as shipping costs, what do you do to approach those to really estimate that as part of your campaign?
I'll take this if you guys are cool with it. It's something I deal very closely with. If you don't know the shipping cost, it is going to eat your lunch. Like, guaranteed. I personally know tons of people, my friends, colleagues, that have done crowdfunding campaigns, and they didn't nail this. We haven't nailed this historically, and it will eat any money you potentially will make out of your crowdfunding campaign, because it is not a fun process to go through. The simplest fulfillment solution I have personally come across, it's not the cheapest, is using multi-channel fulfillment by Amazon. It's the cleanest and easiest because their pricing is very transparent. If the package fits within these dimensions and this weight, this is how much it's going to be, how much it's going to cost. And I've actually set it up so that I fulfill out of the US by Amazon, Canada by Amazon, and the UK by Amazon, which fulfills all of the EU. So all of those pricing structures are very fixed, and I know exactly how much we're going to pay before we launch the campaign, so that it's built into the pricing structure.
Great, thank you. Hey, Jim and Roger, let's open the questions up to folks in the audience. We have a couple of mics over there. So who might have a question that they want to jump in right now with a question? Okay, there's questions.
I have a follow-up question on the shipping. So do you typically build the shipping into the price that's contributed so that they aren't paying shipping at all, or is it something that can be added on to the product after?
Adding on to the product afterwards will become more complicated and onerous after the fact. You would have to use some sort of third-party software, which you're probably already going to use to collect shipping addresses. As far as adding it to the overall pledge level, or even just charging it after the fact, I've done it both ways, and I don't know if there's really a difference on the conversion rate or not. I haven't really dug in. We should launch a new campaign next week, and this campaign we just built the shipping costs into the overall cost so that it's free shipping in the US. As far as international goes, I build in the shipping costs, I add that on to the pledge level so that when someone goes in and selects a country, it'll add on whatever the shipping cost is to that country. Because shipping internationally, especially if you're going to ship out of the US, is extremely expensive. And another note on that specifically is restrict the countries. I personally restrict what countries I sell product to because historically we haven't, and you'll get 1 or 2 or 5 pledges, like one in Kuwait, one in Saudi Arabia, these random places that it ends up costing so much to ship product there that it's like a net negative exercise for those 5 pledge levels. So there's no point, in my opinion, in even giving people those options.
And in terms of do you have free shipping, but the shipping's just built into the price? What's difficult with Kickstarter, Indiegogo, is you can't really A/B test. And with all of our clients, like what was already said, there's not really, I think, a definitive answer. And typically what we found is unless you have shipping on the back end, because basically you have the pledge level, and then when somebody's filling out where they specify their country to show how much the shipping is. And unless the shipping's really high, typically you don't hear many complaints. Obviously some people might be bouncing and not making a purchase. Sometimes we have clients and the shipping's like $100 to the UK, and they're like, whoa, why is this so expensive? Like, I want to get this pledge level, but it's so expensive. Why is it so much? And usually it has to do with weight or other stuff, so.
Right, now, any other questions in the back there?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the different pledge levels and whether you've seen value in adding trinkets or swag type items to your offerings?
We've done this historically, and it's a total waste of time. What I counsel people is just that slide about define your project. What are you trying to do? And that's what you need to focus on. And to take that one step further, I don't think it's a bad idea, like Thomas outlined, to ask your friends and family to help, if you have never done a campaign before, to help kind of build the momentum on the front end. But don't build your campaign for those people. Build all the content for the people who are your actual target customers. Like, your friends and family will back it whether or not they're your target customer. Don't build your campaign for them. There's two types of people that will back your campaign. People that know you, and people that think what you're selling is awesome. Build it for people that know, want to buy your stuff, not for people that know you.
Yeah, and to add to that, I actually hate those pledge levels that are like for $1 or like a sweater or something. Because I like to keep it cleaner, so people, it could already be confusing enough. Somebody who's kind of trying to figure out, oh, here's the product, here's what the pledge levels are, I'm pledging this is what I'm getting. I like to keep it as clean as possible so they see, oh, here's this pledge level, here's what I'm getting. And in terms of swag, I mean, typically people are launching a brand, and so there's not like customer affinity to that brand, so it's not like, I'm not going to get this product, but I love this brand, I'm going to get this sweater. Like that, usually, I mean, maybe like Purple or someone else that has a big following, but for somebody who's starting, it wouldn't make sense, in my opinion.
And kind of a follow-up to that, Alisa, is you guys have a brand in place, really a big following, and so you guys, you can tap into that when you bring a product to market. And so maybe kind of point us, because you guys, again, Facebook is kind of a key to what you guys seem to be doing, right? Facebook advertising. Maybe, what are the top 3 things to consider when advertising on Facebook as it relates to a crowdfunding campaign, or even just a generic product?
Yeah, I think what's been critical to Purple's success is launching with a strong brand. I think that typically companies that are investing in that do better on Facebook long term, and I think it's important to have a relatable, conversational tone that's in line with your brand's personality, and solid video, or if you can't have video, then static imagery that you can loop together to make like a slideshow. I think that is going to help you stand out in the newsfeed and higher potential to see successful results.
Thank you so much. More questions in the audience? Right here in the front, Roger.
Are products that are considered, opinion-wise, disruptive, do they fare any better? I'm looking for a backing in Kickstarter.
What do you mean by disruptive?
Disruptive, something that's almost contrary to what's out there, but does the job much even better. Different.
I mean, we have a formula that we kind of look at, and I don't know if this will directly answer your question. of what makes a good crowdfunding campaign typically for kind of the product design or technology niche or categories on Kickstarter. And we define that as something that's ubiquitous, so it's something that's used regularly, that everyone has, a wallet, a watch, right? Something that's ubiquitous, and then adding a tech element into it. So in that sense, you know, it's kind of differentiating itself with technology. In terms of disruptive, you know, I'm not sure if there's any, I mean, purple, I guess you could call disruptive because it's kind of a whole new class or category of how to do betting. Yeah, without knowing the specific, it'd be hard to say, you know, because usually I think of something as disruptive, like disrupting an entire industry, but in terms of just like a product, it'd be hard to say.
I think it's all about the story that's told on a platform. Like, how is disruptive and how can you show your target